This is Sarah Poriss, and this is The Art of Being Solo, how to have a solo law practice you love and live the life you want. This is an interview series with solo attorneys, small firm attorneys, authors, bloggers, and other professionals who provide practice management and other business building skills and consultation services to attorneys. Today, our guest is Nancy Fox. She owns a company called The Business Fox. She's at thebusinessfox.com. She has been providing coaching and consulting with businesses, mostly accountants and lawyers, for about 20 years on their marketing strategies and business development. She's the author of 2 books, Make Rain Without Pain and Network Like a Fox. And you can get a free chapter of Network Like a Fox at her website, thebusinessfox.com. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here with you guys.
Please let me know if I left anything out of your bio or if you have a...
That was pretty great. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. So I invited Nancy here today because obviously the networking aspect. I spent several years in the early years of my my solo practice doing a lot of networking, and I still do. But there's a skill to it. It takes patience. It takes consistently. So I just wanted to bring Nancy on to talk to us about how to network, where to network. For example, where should lawyers focus their networking time?
So such a great question, and I just want to, if you don't mind, I'll give you a little bit about how I really came up with the approach that I did, which is what I call targeted networking. And, when I first started my business back when, I came out of the corporate world and I didn't have a clue really about how to network for business. And I asked people around me that were in business, where should I network? Where should I network? Where should I network? And they told me, and I would go to these various events. And after about 6 months, I met some lovely people. I began to realize that I was not meeting the right people for the kind of business that I wanted to develop, the caliber of clients that I wanted to be working with, the right mindset, the right level of energy, and the right hunger for developing. They weren't really up to as much as I wanted to have in my client base. So I started to research where to network in better locations and venues. And over the last numerous years, I developed some strategies that have really worked. So because I focus a lot on professionals like lawyers and accountants, and since lawyers and accountants do not go to school for how to network, and in fact, none of us really has, I began to see that let's take a look at how to really, and also lawyers are particularly strapped for time. Let's face it, everything is about the hour and maximizing their time. So for folks in your programs and in your on this event, I want you to know that it's not just a nice idea to target network. It's an essential thing. You don't have the time to waste in going to events and meeting people that are not even in the right sphere for you. So asking people who are your friends about where you should network is generally not a great idea. Number one, they don't know your practice. And number two, they're very often making mistakes. So you're just repeating their mistakes. So you really want to think strategically about, number one, what's your area of specialization? And within your area of specialization, who is your ideal target client? Once you get a profile, your ideal client profile, and in my book, I actually have a client profiler template, so you can follow it literally, how to figure out exactly who you want to work with. Then you can start to figure out, where are these people? Where are the ponds that these people are swimming in? That's where I want to be swimming. I want to fish. I want to swim in the ponds with those fish. So, for example, I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, I was a colleague of mine. I met a colleague who was an intellectual property attorney. So I would say, well, how's your networking going? How's it going for you? And he would say, good. I started getting referrals. And he would say, yeah, I'm getting referrals. I said, are they good referrals? And he would say, they're okay. And they're not enough. Of course, you can never get enough. I said, what do you think is missing in this equation for you? And he said, I'm meeting people, and it's taking too long for these referrals to pan out. These are people who do work with intellectual property attorneys, but I have a specialization. I said, oh, really? What's your specialization within that? And he said, well, I happen to work with medical device companies, and I work on medical device intellectual property. I said, No kidding. I said, well, where are you networking? And he said, he was pretty much networking with general populations of other attorneys. I said, you need to be networking. Who are your decision makers? The decision makers are companies and CFOs and CEOs and GCs in medical device companies. I said, well, you need to be hanging out where they are. In 5 minutes, I did a search on his behalf, and I listed 3 or 4 different conferences that attracted specifically medical device companies and issues around medical devices. So he got himself on an airplane, went to California, which a lot of medical device companies happen to be based in the San Diego area, and he attended a conference, met 6 companies that were relevant to his practice, and these were the decision makers and the direct engagers, and at the same time, he also met some decision makers in the conference, and he was now on the list for being a speaker of the next year. That's targeted networking for you.
So he was networking with other lawyers locally. So he was the intellectual property guy in the room. And
It's just a bad idea.
Well, his thought at the time was, if anyone in this room gets a call from their cousin, their uncle, or a client or something, do you do IP? They'd then think of him and refer that client to him. So that was sort of his attempt to get new clients, was referrals from other attorneys, which I'd like to talk more about, because personally I think, depending on your area of law, that could be like the best way is to have other attorneys know what you do. But there wasn't enough traffic to those lawyers to even send him.
Long, yeah, and it wasn't specific enough. And even if they were referring some relevant sort of business, it really most of the time it wasn't really medical device issues.
And it wasn't the big fish that were going to sustain him, that he was trained to work with, that he was set up to work with.
And It's a perfect case in point where he would go where people told him to network, where he thought would be a good idea. So it's changed his whole thinking, and every one of us can actually rethink the way we're networking. If you want to be, who are your ideal decision makers? And that's another key factor. It's not, sometimes you're networking with people who are in the right arenas, but they're not really decision makers. They can't give you an engagement letter. Who are the people who can give you the engagement letter?
Okay. So if I was that guy and I just done some networking locally, and I'm picturing him in his little brown suit holding a cup of coffee, right, and mingling with other lawyers, and all of a sudden he's getting on a plane and flying into a conference that, so it must have been really way outside of his comfort zone. I mean, how is it
Now, that was an example. I have this philosophy, it's how, not if. So, in other words, you can create almost any result you want. I mean, this is not 100%, of course, but think about this. Your results are really based on your willingness to do whatever it takes. He was willing to buy himself a plane ticket, and it was only 3 days later. He just so happened that the event was happening 3 days later. Changed his schedule, made it his business to get out there and do it. I give the guy a lot of credit. That is an example of being willing to be, he was coachable.
And he didn't say, no, I can't afford it. No, that's crazy to get on a plane in 3 days. And I don't know what area of the country he was coming from, but for me it would be, East Coast. New York. Okay, East Coast to West Coast. Clear your calendar, take a risk that might not pay off, and he made it pay off. And he's a speaker, so clearly he, as a lawyer, inserted himself at this conference where there wasn't a ton of other lawyers vying for the business. Okay, and then so if he's invited to speak again, he must have had a point of view that was a unique one to that conference. Great idea.
And the real challenge here is that nobody really is trained on how to connect the dots between who your ideal decision maker is, and really have a clear profile of that, and then translate that into the right venues and events. I have a client in Cleveland who's an attorney. She's an M&A attorney, and her ideal decision makers are GCs in certain company profiles, right? She's a very clear profile of who exactly so she is attending events where a lot of GCs are speaking.
Okay. So using the internet to research, again, if you're business to business, and I came into this series of interviews, I just work with consumers, just the individual clients. So I want to ask you a little bit about how someone like me, who I don't seek out business clients, I don't seek out big, multi-million dollar accounts and things like that, or companies that are running in those numbers. I'm talking about the average homeowner, the average student, average like post grad who's got student loan
Individual.
debt.
You're dealing with individuals,
Correct.
correct? Right.
So, I'm the one in the brown suit holding the cup of coffee at the networking event. And so, where should I be? Where should the average solo attorney who's working, personal injury, family law, bankruptcy, other things, where should we be?
So what? So then the question for you is, again, remember, this is a connect the dots process, which most lawyers are not trained to do. So the connect the dots question for you is, what circumstances, what situational occurrences are immediately prompting someone to need you? What
Okay.
are they?
Right.
So give me one example.
So someone whose home is in foreclosure, for example, might go to their closing attorney. They might go to a mortgage broker, or they might, and this is sort of, again, it's going to take longer for those people to find me. Go to their the professional in their life, the accountant they know, their boss, someone who seems to be a little more sophisticated financially, or who is well off themselves, or who is another small business owner. So when I
Exactly.
network, I seek out
Networking with those
yeah,
people. And
right.
yes, and other people in the semi-real estate related, or actually real estate finance world, right? So that's one way to do it. Now, here's another strategy would be for you to partner with one of those people, one of those professionals, and do what I call bringing the network into your own living room or into your own conference room, and do some events where you do roundtable discussions with people about they're facing the possibility of foreclosure, and start to have your own roundtable, think tank, seminar discussions yourself, or even have webinar partner with people and do webinars and get it out there that way. So you're starting to actually attract a flow. I think also in your situation and that kind of thing, the visibility and getting known. Are you doing it on a local basis? It's very local for you. Your business is highly local.
Well, of course, right. I mean, because it's every state has a different court procedure. I'm only licensed in one state. It's a small state. I guess one of the things I thought of when you were talking about roundtables is when I network, should my focus be on networking with potential clients themselves or with potential referral sources? And I think that's just something that we as solo attorneys who may be new to networking or might be revisiting networking to try it out again should make that decision. I think it's really awkward. We really can't do face-to-face with our potential clients.
I think in your case, your actual decision maker is the trusted advisor, who is the person that they're going to go to first.
Okay.
Right.
So,
in your case, I think it's probably more likely. But that's why in every specialization of law, the targeted, the same process holds true. You have to figure out who your ideal decision maker is. In your case, the decision maker is actually a key trusted advisor
that can recognize when someone who's coming to them has an issue that I can help with.
Could be their banker too.
Yeah, I mean the list goes on and on. I mean, I even talk to marriage and family therapists and say, hey, how much time are your clients coming in talking about their money issues? And I said, if you send them to me, send them to me for the money stuff, and I'll send them back to you for the real stuff. So I try that.
This is an interesting example. I'm working with a colleague of mine, a lot of CPAs and lawyers and bankers, and I'm thinking sometimes insurance folks. Their direct decision maker is a CFO or controller. It's either the owner, controller, or CFO, depending on the size of the company. So a colleague of mine are organizing a CFO roundtable because we know that if we get the right CFOs in the room, we can then introduce them to our trusted advisors who are our targeted decision makers. So we become sort of a gatekeeper and a gatekeeper and a referral source, a connector.
And are these roundtables so that business owners get to know each other well enough to then recognize when they can refer a potential client, or are these roundtables presenting material to potential clients or to potential decision makers, professionals who would refer us clients, or both?
Okay, so imagine a room full of CFOs, and they're different companies, and they're CFOs, and they're all going to share their strategies, their problems, their questions, their concerns. Today, CFOs have to serve in a lot of different ways other than just on the financial side. They have to be leaders. They have to be strategists. They're dealing with people issues. They're dealing with compliance issues. So they have lots of different stuff. It's not just about, the finances of a company. So when you bring them together, they're going to have an opportunity to talk to each other and share ideas, and we get them in a room, and it's an opportunity for us to facilitate that conversation and give them some support, and they support each other. It's a peer-to-peer thing. On the other side of it, are the CPAs, the bankers who want to be interacting with them can be speakers, can be contributors to content, can be introducers. I mean, it's lots of different ways it gets played out. So there's a win-win-win all the way around.
Sounds good. So the other thing, my experience with networking, I have two things that I'm usually aware of. First of all, there's always someone in the room who doesn't bring a business card. And the other thing is, I think there's some people who kind of lurk in the corner or what have you. So let me talk. I noticed by doing research on you before interviewing you is that you have a certification in body language. And I think that let me tell you the baggage I bring to the networking is that there's a public perception, and so if I'm networking with other business owners that are not all lawyers, the public perception that lawyers have some kind of authority, knowledge, power of some kind. So do I tend to come in and slink in and be like, I'm not threatening and I'm not authoritative, or should I, where should I be on the spectrum of my body language when I'm networking with non-lawyers?
So this is such a crucial question, and I want to encourage everybody who is participating in this event with you and with us today to remember that confidence sells. It just does. The reason this is so is that when people want to work with you, they need to know that you are going to make them feel confident in working with you, and that you will be able to portray a level of assurance and comfort in working with other people that they recommend to work with you, right? So if you don't present that confidence, immediately there's a doubt level that gets generated. So this goes two ways. Number one, as a professional, you need to be aware of other people's body language, and it's very telling. So pay attention to it. There are books and books written on it. I was so intrigued by how important it is that I decided to become certified so that I could share this with my clients and guide them, and also have it available. I wanted to have advanced skills in it myself, because there are very, very important clues that people are giving away all the time. They're saying yes, 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 and meaning no, 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 and you don't know because you want to believe yes, right? Or you don't know when to ask the next question because it sounds so great. It sounds like you have a great meeting with somebody and you can't figure out why. They go AWOL, right? They just go missing in action. And the reason is because at the very moment that you were in conversation with them, they were telling you something, you just didn't know what it was. And you're giving off the very same messages. So being very cognizant of the messages that you're giving and the subliminal messages. We are reading these messages nonstop. It used to be where it was 30 seconds before someone formed an impression. Then it was 7 seconds. I read an article recently that it's within 1 or 2 seconds that people are evaluating whether they want to work with you. That's how incredible it is. And it's not whether you're pretty or not pretty or good looking or not good looking. It's about an aura that you give off.
So it's the confidence level. So if I'm still a law student or a recent law school graduate, and there's going to be a lot of people in that demographic watching these videos, or if I'm newly solo, even if I've been an attorney a long time or tried my hand at a small firm or another firm life and then had to go solo, it's okay to sort of talk the talk and walk the walk, even if you, in the back of your mind, thinking, I don't really have a lot of experience as a lawyer yet. I mean, so it's okay to come in, and we should come in with the confidence.
Let me give you a little clue, okay? The confidence that a lot of these lawyers are exuding on the surface, underneath, they're just as nervous as everybody else. It's Sometimes it goes to the extreme of bravado, and sometimes it's just, they've cultivated it over time. So you can exude confidence, and I have clients that are newbies in the business world who exude a lot of confidence based on how they learn to present themselves properly, and they back it up. What they're missing in experience, which is valid, it's a valid concern. They back it up with projects that they've gotten involved in, people that they've met, people that they've gotten informational interviews with and inspired and even impressed, books that they've read, papers they've actually written on or commented on. That's why LinkedIn is such a great tool. So there's a way of overcoming this lack of experience with being very aware and present and proactive in the business world today.
So doing volunteer work as you're learning and gaining experience, having taken a continuing legal education course, a half day or a full day on an area of law, these are enough where you can say, or having the time to research a question. Like when someone asks me a question I don't know but I'm interested, I can say, well, let me look into that for you, or let me research that for you. Knowing if you're new or newly solo and you do have time, that could be enough to relay that confidence and competence to that new potential client or that new potential referral source, even if you've never tried a case or never handled anything in that area. So those are things you can rely on. You're saying to keep in the back of your mind all the things you've done to get to that moment, and don't discount any of them.
Exactly. It could sound something like, obviously I don't have the experience. Obviously it's clear that my experience is going to increase as time goes on. For now, I'm really working a lot on researching projects, and I've made a lot. I'm working on very interesting research projects so that I'm getting myself, into a place where there's a lot of value brought to professionals like you, and I'm sharing that information on blogs, on white papers, and things like that. People will be interested in that. They want to see initiative. There are so many professionals out there who are disappointed and frustrated by the lack of initiative of people coming out of schools. Demonstrate initiative, demonstrate commitment, demonstrate doing what it takes, like getting on an airplane if you need to. Demonstrate these things. There are so many ways to demonstrate that you stand out.
And so not having experience doesn't mean you're not competent, is really the message.
Absolutely.
And
I can tell you, professionals are looking for standout initiative, proactivity, commitment, integrity, being willing to go the extra mile, thinking beyond the box, connecting the dots, introducing good. That's why you need to build a great network. If you learn how to network, connect people to good people, even the most experienced attorneys always love to meet good people, and they don't know everybody.
And one other thought I had on that was when you are networking, maybe with other attorneys and you're less experienced, another way to attract a client or to take on a project when opportunity presents is to find some kind of mentorship. So is that something you work with your clients to recognize where they need mentorship, and then that saying, well, I can't handle that case on my own, but I'm working with an experienced attorney who's going to mentor me on that. Is that something that we should look to do?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example of this. I had a client who was very young guy, and he was his specialization, his focal point. So he was not a partner. He was on his way. He was on his way up. He was in his third year, and he really liked real estate, and he liked real estate hedge funds. That was just interested. His family had a lot of real estate interests and stuff like that. Went to a hedge fund presentation. He confidently walked up to the managing director of the hedge fund after the presentation and said, I really liked what you had to say. I think you have a very great investment opportunity here. And he said, I'd like to attend your next event and bring some people that I think would be potential investors for you. Would that be okay? The managing director is thinking, are you kidding? Of course it's okay. But he's thinking, I don't know that this kid really has the right people. Sure enough, the next event, he my client shows up with, there were probably 9 people. So he made a huge effort to invite people that were of high caliber that he had in his world, because he had cultivated this, who were potential investors. So the managing director, when he saw that this guy actually put his money where his mouth is, do you think he didn't want to take a meeting with him after that? Young, not a partner. Even though he wasn't a partner, he behaved partner.
Mm.
So eventually what happened was, back to your question about building a mentorship and team, that particular hedge fund was in fact looking for a new firm. So happened. So he set up a meeting with the GC, managing director, and he brought some key people from his firm with him because he couldn't handle the technicals around it yet. So he created a team in his firm, brought them to the meetings, and it became the largest single client the firm had ever gotten.
And I'll bet that kid ended up getting his partnership, right?
Oh, he did. He was made partner. They couldn't avoid it. They had to make him partner because he brought the initial engagement was about $800,000, and it went to over $1 million within less than a year.
And it sounds to me like he didn't have to go out of his way to do that. You said these are people he was already connected with, and so it was a very authentic thing for him to do. I just kind of want to put that in there.
No, he had to go out of his way. He definitely had to go out of his way.
Okay.
He had to make an effort to get 9 people to come with him. Imagine trying to get everybody. I mean, he was really on the phone saying, "You got to come to this. You got to come to this. You should see this. You should see this."
But he had everyone's best interest in mind, and not just his. Like he maybe didn't see it coming that it was going to turn into such a great thing, but he wanted to connect these other people.
He knew this was. He felt it, that this was in his sweet spot. These were his ideal people. He had a profile in his head.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. These are real stories. This is not stuff I'm making up. These are things that people really do. And then there's the flip side of people that go, I can't, I'm too busy. I have to turn these, I have a huge case I'm working on. I can't. This, I don't have enough time. These are 90% of the time, that's what's happening. 10% of the time, these people are standouts.
And so you're saying that's the initiative. These are great stories and great examples of how a little initiative, maybe something you don't do every day on a daily basis or you think you have time for, could really pay off.
But let me say one thing about that daily basis. Daily consistent activity is the way to deal with this. If I learned one thing that I want to share back, all of us are in the same boat. Get the business, service the business. Get the business, service the business. As soon as you get the business, you have to work on it. Now your networking and your business development goes down. And it becomes this yo-yo. The way to avoid the yo-yo is, instead of trying to do too much at one time, chunk it down. I call it time chunking. 15-minute or 20-minute intervals of a business development every single day. You will be amazed by what you create. But you have to do it every day, and you have to get into the habit of thinking, this is my business development. It doesn't have to be the same time every day, because you're going to have different things come up. But before you leave the office, turn off the computer, close the door. You got to get the 15 to 20 minutes of business development activity into that equation, or you will not generate results.
I was talking to someone the other day about, I never have time to fit in a workout. And she said, look at your calendar, look at the next week where there's not much going on, and start scheduling in your workouts for that next week. And it's the same thing here. If you don't have time to blog, or you don't have time to do this, go to your next most vacant spot on your calendar and just put something in there, right? And then if you make that a priority, like an appointment, and work other things around that, then you actually get in the habit. That's probably a good way to start.
Committed. Has to be the commitment. If you're not committed, everybody wants to be successful in business. So there's really, it's really interesting. If you're interested in being successful, you'll do what's convenient. If you're committed, you'll do whatever the heck is necessary.
Okay, that's a great thought.
It's just the way it is. I didn't make it up. It's just the way life is.
And it's stretching. If you want to grow, you have to stretch and do something different today and tomorrow and the next day than you have been, if you feel like you aren't where you are yet, right?
To be out of your comfort zone. And you're for you folks who are going solo or a small firm, you're already in your uncomfort zone. So you might as well do the next uncomfortable thing to be successful. And once you get in the habit, it's like everything else. You get in the habit of doing it, and it becomes a lot more second nature. And then the pipeline fills, the flow starts to happen. Having the mentors around you to kick you in the butt to get you back on track when you fall off. It's like being on a diet. If you fall off a diet, the people tend to just, they just start binging, when in fact the thing to do is to just get back on and do the next right thing the next day, even if you fell off.
That sounds great. Now, it's been really wonderful having Nancy Fox of The Business Fox at thebusinessfox.com with us here on The Art of Being Solo. Before I let you go, Nancy, I have 3 random questions for you, as I have for all of the speakers on this event. Okay, ready?
Random.
The fox is the state animal of what state?
Oh my God. I don't know. What?
Washington State. Washington
Huh?
State.
Washington State. Oh my God.
Thank you, Wikipedia. All right.
Now I know that.
The actor who was in Back to the Future and the TV show Family Ties is named?
Michael J. Fox.
That's great. And our last question, Nancy. What does the fox say?
Oh my God. I don't know, but I'm working on my own video version of that. So what does the Business Fox say?
That's brilliant. Brilliant. Genius.
Business Fox says, thanks so much. And all of you guys out there, I really, to your success and to your great enjoyment, and it's a really gratifying thing to go off on your own. Ain't easy, but it is worth it.
The best kept secret is what I say.
Yes.
All right. Again, Nancy Fox of The Business Fox, thank you so much for being with us here on The Art of Being Solo.
Thanks, Sarah. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks again. Bye.